So I'm pretty sure someone famous like Steve McQueen or Paul Newman said something like racing is life, everything else is waiting. So when it comes to bike building, waiting for parts to arrive is life and everything else is waiting. I'm not sure that makes any sense, but anyway, not a whole lot of parts coming in this week. Gave the postman a break, but a few updates to the to the project. To start off with, the solution for a 12 millimeter bolt in a 1 inch frame tube comes in the form of these top hat spacers I got made actually out of the UK, and it's no slight against any of the local machinists, but you know, their number one priority is farm equipment and tractor repair and big engineering products. And to find someone who's willing to spend some time on the lathe making 4 of these bespoke spacers is hard to do. So there was a shop in the UK, found them on eBay, sent them a quick email with the specs, and these came to me within a week and a half or so. So 75 aluminum, and then so these top hat spacers sit in there. I've got some engine bolts coming in, actually 1 inch longer than this. This isn't even drill rod, it's just I think some pretty low grade 12 millimeter steel rod. So we'll thread a nut on each side, and that'll take care of that. They might be slightly short for the front here, but I might still come up with a solution. But I got 4 of these spacers made here that slide in there, and you know, the compression of the bolt tightening there, you can see the little gap there. I probably could have made it even tighter, but millimeters good enough. And so the nut will compress on that and tighten the frame to the engine. Yeah, it would have been nice to have that nut hidden inside the frame tube there, but again, this is a modern engine with much bigger engine mount bolts, and that's why I had to come up with a solution. So I'm pretty happy with that. Another solution to a problem. So I've got the carbs back fitted again. These are some, I think, Sprint or Pipercross foam filters. Anyway, the issue is that normally the throttle cable comes in through here and loops up pretty high. There had to be a 90 degree fitting on here, and that would have fouled on the other side of the tank. So after a lot of hemming and hawing, and there is a key-in carburetor piece that replaces this bit here that moves the you know, throttle cam or throttle cable in a different direction. You can see that's not ideal yet. This should be at a slightly different angle, but anyway, when you pull the throttle, it certainly, you know, works okay and is relatively smooth actually. So I might look at you know, bending this tab up just slightly. I still want that cable to clear the top of the frame tube, because it's also going to clear the top of the underneath the top of the frame tube, so it can clear the bottom of the tank. The tank, I think I'm just going to make flat here, but I'll see if Brent can put a little concave in there into the tank to give more room for the throttle. So yeah, you can see that that's kind of at an angle, so it should be pointed slightly differently. So it's just a piece of steel strip from Canadian Tire, and there's a notch cut in the other side so the cable can slide in there. But yeah, I think I could get away with that cable, with this plate bent up slightly. But anyway, it seems to work fine. So maybe I'll just leave it as it is. Going to the back now. When you work on bikes and you build stuff, sometimes you just come up with, I don't know what to call it other than karma. So anyway, this is my battery box that I built and bent myself. You can see my directions and my guidelines here, and it's only holding about a 1 pound lithium ion battery. So I haven't even welded this bit here, and I'm not sure I need to, but if so, I'll maybe, when I bring in the tank, Brent can tack that there so the bottom doesn't fall into it. I made it a bit oversized so the battery can slide in there with some foam around it, keep it from vibrating. But my original plan, if you recall, was to have it mounted here up at the front, hanging off the cylinder. But then I was worried that, you know, it could foul into this underside of the carbs. I'm going to have the coils and igniters here. It was getting all kind of a bit crowded there, and of course having the battery, you know, right behind there, I might want to put an oil cooler there or something like that. And the idea too is that I wouldn't want flooding carbs to leak on top of the battery terminals, of course, thinking worst case scenario. So I kind of gave up on that idea and thought, well, the originals had the battery mounted at the back, and I'll have to be careful about battery cable length and that sort of thing. I'll have to monkey with that when the time comes to put on the wiring harness. But I honestly measured this out, just eyeballed it, came up with an arbitrary figure, hadn't even thought about mounting at the back and using this, but as you can see, it lines up perfectly. Like, I couldn't have told you before this weekend what the distance was between these two posts, because the whole idea was to have this whole assembly here at the front. And so I kind of, better look at mounting at the back, and I wonder how close this is to mount here, and it's bang on. And so again, a 1 pound battery, that's absolutely strong enough. And I think as the shock travels, like, it's not going to foul on the bottom of the battery box as the shock goes through its stroke. So it looks like I meant to do it, and maybe I'll claim that if anyone ever asks, why did you put the battery back there? Oh, well, I saw these two OEM posts here and I lined it up perfectly, and what do you know, it fits like a charm. But anyway, the truth is out there. This long piece, once I get the battery fitted, I'm going to bend it down here, and so it sort of keeps the battery from going up and down. And I think the positive and negative terminals are going to come out this way, not over the top. This is, as the British say, as near as damn it, you know, in terms of where the top of the battery. This doesn't go up to the full height of the battery. I think it's right about here. So the seat should clear it. And anyway, I might set the seat up just a bit higher or stand off from the frame tube here when I actually get it. But again, problem is that when you're waiting for parts, you do your best measurements, you think how things will fit, you know, measure, and then build it. This, I might have to move that. But anyway, it certainly seemed to line up perfectly, and you know, for a place to mount a battery, it seems pretty brilliant, if you ask me. So the question remains, looking forward, starter solenoid, and I think on the 900 SS's they mounted somewhere right around here. So I might move it towards the back, closer to the battery, and then of course the cable down to the starter, and then the main ground cable here, which grounds out to the case, you know, would come up to the back here as well. So anyway, some wiring work will need to get done when the time comes, but I think, as I mentioned in an earlier post, I've certainly simplified the wiring loom as it is. So the other key thing that I've heard, I guess I'm taking the time and spending the money now to eliminate as many potential future issues with this bike, and a lot of that encompasses the wiring harness. So as you know, I haven't scrimped. I've got the higher power California Cycle Works coils. They're going to mount right here with the igniter boxes that come off this. And here's the again, it's getting kind of hard and stiff, but this is off the alternator. But if you're running a lithium battery with no lights, the recommendation is to get a proper stator, regulator rectifier to work with that kind of load on the electrical system. So it's in a way, from what I understand, and I'm no electrical guru, it's because you're running a lesser load, you can overheat the regulator rectifier. So I reached out to a guy who was recommended to me. He sells MOSFET, I think they're called, and Shinden regulator rectifiers, specifically for more modern lithium ion batteries, and and the electrical system will be running. So he recommended one to me. It's not cheap, but again, you know, I'm gonna save 7 or 8 pounds with the battery, so I might as well get the proper regulator rectifier to work with it so I don't cook anything. So the coils are going to be mounted here, and then along the back side there's just enough room for the reg rec to sit right here. And again, it's not in the airflow because there'll be a fairing here, but there it's out of the way, and I'll stand it off from these brackets here, because they are vented because they do heat up, and it'll act a bit as a heat sink. So when you're working out of a garage with decent but limited tools, a peanut butter jar full of bolts, it gets to the point where I you know, don't want to use a Dremel tool, don't want to use a set of tin snips, so I got to measure everything out as much as I can in my brackets that I make before I go use a brake and a shear somewhere. So the neat thing about this guy, and I'll maybe add a link to the website for this regulator rectifier here, is that he shared a template, and so I'm going to kind of mount it kind of like this underneath the or behind the headstock. I got to use this and some measurements, and this is the starting point for a template that I'm going to make. So I have a secret location where there's a brake and a shear and some sanding materials in this nice soft aluminum. So this will be cut out nice and square, stylized a bit. Maybe we'll even cut a nice big hole in the middle here for more of a heat sink. So that's where the reg rec mounts up. That's where it mounts to the frame itself, and Bob's your uncle. I'll have it mounted behind the headstock. So that's it for where I'm at right now. So yeah, that reg rec is coming in, and not the funnest way to spend money. not an exciting thing to spend your money on, but it is what it needs to be, and it'll help the bike run properly. What I ended up doing, because the exhaust system that I originally bought for that project will no longer suit this project, I was on the lookout for a suitable exhaust system, and as usual, cast my eyes to Japan, and what do I find but a 2-into-1 full titanium exhaust system for a monster 400, or sorry, a Ducati 400 SS. So again, Japanese market SS, and I emailed good old Brad Black from Australia, and he assured me, he's making me spend money, Brad, he assured me that if it fits a 400 SS, it'll fit a 600 SS. The nice thing about this this system is that, based on the pictures that I could tell, the header diameter is, I think, 40 millimeters, which is slightly larger than, I think the originals were like 32. So it's more more diameter in the exhaust headers, which should help with exhausting the gas out of the engine. Being full titanium, it probably weighs nothing. It isn't brand new. There's some dents in it and that sort of thing, but nothing too horrific. And the exhaust can that comes with it is welded right to the 2-to-1 collector. So, depending on the shape that's in, depending on how much baffling's still in there, depending if I can, pull the sleeve off and replace some of the baffling, because I'm sure it's blown right through. I might either try to retain that muffler, or come up with a different solution, like a different slip-on muffler and that sort of thing. But we all know how much titanium mufflers cost, and so if I can salvage it, I guess it's not wrecked, but it's scratched up, beat up, and it looks like some baffling has probably already blown out of it. It's also got a bit of a noise reducer in it, like a slip-in, I don't know, noise reducer, for lack of a better term, and it looks a bit rough itself. So I'm sure I'll pull that out and get a sense of what it looks like. So knowing my friends over in Japan, it'll probably be here in a week and a half. and I'll be able to start temporarily fitting that. So it even has some nice bluing around the welds and the bends that happens with titanium pipes when you heat it up. I'm not sure if people have seen any of my previous vlogs, even early on or with the Panta project, where I kind of explain this front fork setup. This is a nice bonus in that it's not proper, but you can see we've got sort of a de facto fork stop here. Not sure if I like it hammering into the back of the triple clamp. I might come up with a different solution, but that works for now anyway in terms of stopping the forks hammering the frame tubes. But what I've got here is actually a hybrid Daytona and Street Triple 675 front end. So both outer sleeves up here, the outer female sleeves here are Street Triple. But what I did is I found someone had crashed a Daytona 675, so they had one right fork leg for sale, straight. So I took all the guts out of it, and then just put it into the Street Triple outer. And so what I have then is the capacity for a single radial front caliper, which should grip fairly well. Oh, look at that! I mounted the fork on backwards on the left-hand side. Yeah, I'll deal with that. So radial caliper, adjustable preload and rebound on one side, which again, it's not like a full adjustable front end, but there's no way a bike this light and this power less, with lacking this much power, 50 or 60 horsepower, does not mean twin 310 or 320 millimeter rotors. So save some weight. The braking will be fine. In order to make it work, this is actually a Nissan 12 millimeter front master cylinder, and it's not radial, it's axial, but again, it's plenty of braking for what I need. And on the other side, imagine this flipped around 180 degrees. This was the original mount for the brake boss here. I cut it off because obviously I don't need it. And the other thing too is that it had odd spacing, like 80 millimeter or 82 millimeter between centers, and so there's no caliper upgrade that will reasonably work that I could find. So I just said to heck with it. Maybe I can make some Daytona Street Triple hybrid combination work. Obviously the top looks different. There's going to be adjusters for preload and compression on one side and not the other. But hey, it's a race bike. And modern forks, like the best of the best, we all know have compression in one side and rebound in the other. That's what my Duke underneath the cover there has. So that's the trick direction that front suspension is going. So let's just say I'm trying to keep up with the times. So anyway, that's where we're at so far. So hopefully within another week or so, I'll have another video update with either, maybe the exhaust on, or the bolts are in, so I can get it up off the stand and get it back on wheels, or something to that effect. So yeah, we'll just keep plugging away at this and see how it progresses. Like I've always said, like and subscribe, turn me into a famous YouTuber, and I can do this full time. Not.